So what do you have? You have fast food. You have all these minimum wage jobs.
Right.
Which are, I mean, there's some arguments. Those could be just, those are high school jobs.
Right.
Like right after high school, just to get the idea of working, then move
level,
on.
Yeah.
Then move on to bigger and better things. But again, government comes in and shuns you from education to get those jobs. And then those jobs go away because there's so much taxes they can't afford it. Or, CEOs of companies who are white men who take the lion's share and everybody else is fucked over.
Yep.
I was coming back to asking why. Like, I missed a train somewhere, I feel like, because we were talking about politics, and then we brought in our
living situations.
What do you call it?
White privilege.
Thank you. White privilege. And then I was like, wait, where did that come from? But then you talking just now, bringing it back in with the CEOs and the whatnots. I'm on the same page. Okay.
Yeah, it's it's the same reason that like how you can a police officer can be caught on tape brutalizing and even murdering a person and get no comeuppance from it. Like Philando Castile, right, was in a car with his girlfriend and his daughter in the back seat, and a police officer pulled them over, and you can hear on the tape Philando is saying, "I'm reaching for my registration. It's right next to my gun, but I have a permit for that. I'm not reaching for that. I'm going for my wallet." And the cop was just like, "Don't you fucking move!" Pop, 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 and let off like 7 shots into the dude in front of his kid, and he got put on leave.
Jesus.
Like administrative leave. Like there's video evidence that this happened. And because he was a police officer, they don't have to face the same kind of repercussions that if I shot somebody 17 times in front of his children, no matter how white I am, I'm going to jail.
Right.
But if I had a badge and a gun, I'd probably get away with it.
He was a black officer, too, I believe.
Was he?
Yeah. Also involved with other corrupt situations as well. But the other guy, he's also a well-known drug dealer and bad for society.
The guy who got shot?
Yeah.
But, I mean, still, if you're not resisting...
That's true.
There was no reason, like there was no threat right there that the police officer should have let off 7 shots in rapid succession. There was no threat. He shouldn't have done it. That should not be allowed.
Why do you think that? Like I don't know anything about what you guys are talking about right now. So this is just coming from pure ignorance. Okay. Why do you think that he got away with it?
Because he's a police officer.
Yeah, but like even police officers have to go through like the justice system, right?
Sometimes they do, and sometimes they go through the justice system and they still get off.
That's what I'm saying. Like
I don't know why it happens, but it's because the people and the people who make the laws are then the people who have to enforce the law. Like they're all working together to keep themselves in the authority and in power. And I don't claim to be an expert on it. I don't know why they get away with it when there's video evidence. The only thing I can think is that because the system is designed to oppress the less fortunate.
The only thing that pops in my head with all this is that not all cops are like that.
No, not all of them.
And I just like a lot of times we like to put things in categories because it's easier to comprehend.
Right.
But there are bad apples in every thing in life.
Absolutely. No. And I didn't mean to make it sound like I was blanketing that all police officers are bad, because I've known personally police officers in my life who have been upstanding, who would never do things like that. But when the reports are, I mean, it's there's a lot of bad apples amongst the good ones, and I feel like, and I could be wrong, again, I'm no expert, but I feel like the good apples aren't doing enough to get rid of the bad apples. Like, nobody's harvesting the crops the way they're supposed to, or whatever it is, keeping the apple analogy going. But, you know, it's just everything is fucked up.
Well, I think that goes to say a lot about just people, you know? It's like, there's just, I don't know. I started listening to an audiobook called Nonviolent Communication.
Okay.
And it was funny because I heard about it from a guy who was on a podcast with Tim Ferriss, the Tribe of Mentors podcast. And he was talking about the title of the book is so out there. He says it's like the way that he uses this term nonviolent communication would be like saying non-murderous cuddling. and so like the way, so I listened to almost the whole book today. I drove out to Twin Falls, did a job in Twin Falls, and then I drove back from Twin Falls and listened to both there and back and almost finished the book. This guy talks a lot about how like we too often want to evaluate and judge others based on inaccurate facts,
right,
and too much opinions being put into things instead of looking at like the needs of others and a person's ability to describe and articulate their own needs in a way that doesn't infringe upon another person's needs.
Yeah.
And so something that he talks a lot about in the book is people who lash out in violence, whether that's verbal violence or physical violence or like me diagnosing you, me acting like I know what's wrong with you kind of thing. It's generally because there was a problem in the education of that person. Like the,
well, sure.
Right? And so instead of us being all like it's the good apples' responsibility to weed out the bad apples, it should be everyone's responsibility to be educated and also to provide education, right?
Well, sure.
And so I just say that because I think myself included, too many people are ignorant to the things that but have a huge influence in why people are being violent towards other people.
Right.
Like homeboy who shot the other guy, police officer shoots a dude. I don't know names, doesn't really matter for this scenario. This guy who shot the other guy, whether it was right or wrong or whatever, that person who shot them had been educated poorly, and I'm not even talking about like formal education. I'm talking
Training.
about upbringing.
Yeah.
You know,
right? But still, I mean, and I understand that, and I get that, you know, your environment and things like that, you know, whatever, nature versus nurture or whatever or what have you. But when you don't just get to walk into a police precinct and say, I want to be a cop, and they just think, all right, and give you a badge and a gun. Like, you have to go through, you have to go to the academy.
Seems like that, though.
It seems like that, sure, but like you have to go to the academy and you have to train. You have to learn how to use your gun. You have to learn what the laws are. You have to learn your Miranda rights and all these other things that go into whether or not they're going to let you become a police officer.
Yeah. Right.
And so you should be trained to not panic, because you're supposed to be the one in control of these high-pressure situations.
But this homeboy panicking might not have had anything to do with it. It could have been a lot of prejudice towards the situation.
Probably.
So what I'm remember last week how we were talking about like radiating authenticity?
Yeah.
And how I said some people don't radiate authenticity, and you can't, like, sometimes you can tell if a person's being fake or not. And sometimes, like, you cannot tell if a person's being fake.
Yeah.
Like, that a person's ability to project themselves in a certain way, I can't help a person that's projecting a false image of themselves. You know what I mean? And people who are bad apples, let's say, going into an environment like that to where they have all the legal rights of a police officer and at least from the outside looking in, are a person of integrity and a person who knows the law.
They're supposed to be.
Yeah.
Anyway.
I mean, that's legit. That's what they're projecting to the rest of the world. I can't always see something that's there if it's not truly being projected. Like, I don't know what I'm trying to say exactly, but
I feel like sometimes, like, I would hate to be a police officer because you have to make second decisions at times.
Sure. Yeah.
And granted, that situation is very messed up. Even if the guy said, I'm going just for my registration, I do have a gun, but I'm going for this. Being a known drug dealer or whatever, in the back of your head as a police officer, is he really going for that or not?
Sure.
But I would also, if I saw a kid and a mother, I think, well, maybe he's not that dumb.
Yeah, and regardless of whether or not a person is a known drug dealer, like, that's still no excuse for murder to be the first thing that happens. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
maybe he could have just been selling weed. Like, I don't know what he's doing, but it didn't warrant. You know, like you said, look at the situation. There's a child in the car, his girlfriend. This dude, even if he is some kind of a monster of a thug, is not going to start popping off with his kid in the car. It's just not, it wasn't a dangerous situation. And there was no reason that the officer should have responded like that. The same way that dude in Staten Island, Eric Garner, got choked out because he was selling loose cigarettes. He had his hands in the air while he was clearly not resisting. It's on tape. He clearly wasn't posing any kind of a threat, and they choked him out till he died. And then just a little while ago, the report came out that there was no wrongdoing found in that situation. So, again, they got away with it.
Yeah.
I don't know anything about what you're talking about. No. Well, where do you even hear these things?
See, I don't even know what, like, when you're talking about like the audiobooks and stuff like that, it sounds very interesting, but I have no concept in my mind to go and look for that stuff, and so it's kind of cool learning that from you.
Mm. Well, thank you.
Yeah.
Where do you find these things that you're obviously worked up about?
In the news.
Yeah, but, like, do you seek that out?
No.
Well, how do you get it then?
It shows up on my timeline because I have
on Facebook.
Facebook everywhere,
and
it'll pop up on. If I'm doing a Google search for something will pop up and it'll be like, 15 people dead in another
and
fucking
you, like, read
shooting.
it and stuff.
I look into them, sure.
I will never ever do that.
Oh.
I don't want to carry that kind of negative energy with me. Like, some people will be like, well, you're ignoring the reality of the situation, or you don't want to be involved in what's actually happening. And to some extent, that's true. And if that makes me a fucking asshole, then I'm a fucking asshole. I don't care. Like, my peace of mind and heart is important to me.
Yeah. No, I just like to be informed of, what's going on in the world, because I have a child to raise. Mm-hmm. And if he starts asking me questions, I want to be able to answer him to the best of my ability. So I like to keep up on the news and world events, because a lot of what's happening isn't going to affect me. Because I'm almost 40 years old. Like, I've made the decisions that I've made that have put me on the path that I'm on. Like, nothing's going to change for me, really. Unless
that's not.
Well, I mean, just in terms of, like, what am I trying to say? Like,
your trajectory.
My trajectory is, I'm either gonna end up making a living doing comedy, or I'm gonna be working menial jobs for the rest of my life. That's just.
But that doesn't have to be how it is.
Well, for the foreseeable future, that's how it is. But my son has his entire life ahead of him. So I want to be able to see where we're going so I can help him get there in the easiest possible way for him.
I think that's how all parents feel,
I would hope.
I don't think any parent would expect their 40-year-old son to move back in with them.
Well, I mean,
but No, but yeah, they want their child to have an easier upbringing than